If authorities have charged you with a crime, it's really crucial that you start thinking about a sentencing hearing. Not only a sentencing hearing that you may face in the imminent future, but the potential for a resentencing hearing or some type of an administrative proceeding that can result in another stakeholder taking another look at you and determining or assessing whether continued incarceration is appropriate in your case. My name is Michael Santos, and our team at Prison Professors really strives to help more people understand how crucial it is to begin sowing seeds really early for the prospects of a sentencing hearing or the prospects of being reevaluated a little bit later in your life. Now, of course, you're going to have a defense attorney that's working on your behalf, but there have been some reforms and movements in the criminal justice system that really make it crucial for somebody to begin thinking about, how do I document my story? How do I demonstrate that I am a worthy candidate for leniency or mercy at sentencing? And that's something that maybe the defense attorney doesn't always do a great job of preparing somebody for. And so that's one of the reasons that our team likes to help you begin thinking about, how are you going to document your story? Because the sooner you begin documenting your story, the more powerful you become in being able to argue a little bit later that you are a worthy candidate for mercy or leniency or reconsideration. Now, for those of you who aren't too familiar with our work, I would encourage you, visit the Prison Professors website and scroll to the bottom of the screen where you see our story. You'll also see it on our sister site called Compliance Mitigation. What we strive to do is help people recognize we're not just, people that are talking that don't know what we're talking about. I was personally arrested in 1987 and was incarcerated for 26 years. But since I went into the system, there have been a lot of reforms in the criminal justice system that make sense for people to begin thinking about, what should they be doing today to position themselves for something in the future. When I went to prison, the only mechanism that existed to get relief was really executive clemency. And that was just such a very long shot chance, because the only person that could grant clemency would have been the President of the United States. And that's the case in the federal system. If somebody's going into the state system, it's going to be the chief executive officer of the state in most cases, which is the governor. But if somebody's going to try for clemency, they've got to begin thinking really early about sowing seeds that's going to make this person look like he is a worthy candidate. But again, that is a very long shot. There are other opportunities that could happen, such as some of you, I'm filming this in early December 2020, and we saw that the House of Representatives for the U.S. Congress recently, today, just passed a bill that would decriminalize marijuana. Well, if they decriminalize marijuana, it could potentially result in many people getting resentenced. But that's not the only way. I mean, so during the 25 years that I was locked in prisons, I did my last year in a halfway house, but the 25 years that I was locked in prisons, there were periodically situations that came up that resulted in I don't know if tens of thousands, but certainly thousands of people being eligible for a resentencing. You want to begin thinking about that potential for a resentencing much earlier than on the eve of resentencing. One of the pieces of advice that we would give to anybody going into the system is recognize that although today, understandably, you're only thinking about the sentencing that is in your imminent future, but our criminal justice system incarcerates people for so long, and so much can change that it just makes a lot of sense to begin thinking about, well, if something changes, how am I going to be in a very good position to get relief? And one of the biggest pieces of prison reform legislation that recently came down, and I'm speaking about recent in terms of criminal justice terms, President Trump signed this legislation called the First Step Act in 2018. In fact, it was almost 2 years ago. But 2 years have passed. It was such a monumental shift in the way that administrators are supposed to look at people in prison that the Bureau of Prisons took a full year just to create their assessment tools and retrain their staff so that they could begin carrying the benefits of the First Step Act out. And then, unfortunately, the pandemic struck. So although the First Step Act provides mechanisms through which a person can really transition from prison to home confinement much earlier through this concept of earned time, which is fundamentally different from good time. And if you want the details on that, visit our website at Prison Professors where we have all this type of information. But with earned time, a person is theoretically supposed to be able to participate in programs that will demonstrate or reflect the person's commitment to emerging as a law-abiding, contributing citizen. And if he does that, he accumulates these credits that he can cash in at the end of his sentence to transition from prison to home confinement. So theoretically, somebody could earn as many as 15 days of earned time credits every single month. So, that's basically half time. That's in addition to good time, which is a different concept, and it's too complicated for me to explain here. Again, we have a lot of that information that explains good time and earned time on the Prison Professors website. But one of the other huge factors that's getting a lot of play right now in the First Step Act is this provision for compassionate release. See, in the Bureau of Prisons, theoretically, they've always had the mechanism to grant somebody compassionate release. But over the past 30 years, the prison system has operated so punitively that it's been very rare that somebody would get a motion for compassionate release, because it couldn't happen unless the Bureau of Prisons made a motion for compassionate release. And the Bureau of Prisons is designed to receive, not to let people out. So they were very, very stingy in giving those out. I mean, maybe I would be surprised if a dozen people got movements for compassionate release over the past 25 years. That's how, I don't have exact statistics, but I can tell you it was very rare. And it would be somebody who maybe was diagnosed as having stage 4 cancer and a couple of weeks to live. That might be somebody in rare cases that the Bureau of Prisons would make a motion for compassionate release. But the First Step Act changed that. Now, as a result of the First Step Act, anybody that's going into the federal prison system can make a motion before the judge that could theoretically result in a compassionate release. But if the person hasn't built the story, it doesn't matter. So when somebody is going to go through the process of petitioning the court for compassionate release, the process is, first of all, the person needs to request the warden to grant him compassionate release, because even the warden has the ability to do it. And the warden can do it as a result right now because of the pandemic. So the Attorney General has authorized the warden to use his discretion or her discretion to look at an individual candidate. And if this person is worthy of compassion, then the prison system can release this person to serve the remainder of his or her sentence on home confinement. So it's important to recognize that. But if the warden doesn't give the right response that the person wants, or doesn't answer at all within 30 days, then the person in prison has the ability to petition the sentencing court judge under Title 18, 3582. So I would encourage you to understand that if somebody does put this motion forward, the judge has to consider 3 components. 1, is there both extraordinary and compelling reasons that would argue that this person is a worthy candidate for compassionate release? And there is an objective process that the judge is supposed to consider. The first is it's got to be both extraordinary and compelling. The second is the release mechanism has to be consistent with policy statements. And the third is the judge is supposed to consider the factors, the same factors that he considered at sentencing at the start, which is under 3553A. And there are 4 factors. 1, of course, they have to consider the severity of the offense. 2, did the punishment reflect the seriousness of the crime? 2, did the punishment already deter other people in society from committing the crime? 3, has the person has the penalty sufficiently protected the public? And 4, this is the key one, is did the person build a record demonstrating that he is participating in rehabilitation programs, training programs to reflect that this person is worthy of compassionate release and a sentence reconsideration? So either he can be removed from the Bureau of Prisons or he can serve the remainder of a sentence on home confinement. Now, I really would urge you, learn what you can do today to begin documenting your story. This is something that your attorney cannot do for you. The only one who can move the needle in this is you. And if you look at my story of how I went through 26 years, you will see how I documented that strategy. In fact, I would encourage you, visit Prison Professors and look at under the tab on the top that says Services, Reputation Management or Reputation Building, and you'll see all the steps I took to demonstrate that I was a worthy candidate for leniency. The challenge is that when I was in prison, these mechanisms did not exist. They exist today, and as you can see in the in the current news, the prison system is changing. And it's changing in a manner that can have a great influence on your life. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you haven't documented your story, you're not going to be in a position to get the best outcome. So please visit our site, learn what you can do to take care of yourself, and then start sowing the seeds. You know, there's an analogy I frequently use when I'm teaching, and it says the best time to plant an oak tree. When is it? Well, the best time to plant an oak tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So make sure that you're planting seeds today to get the outcome you want in the future. And if you want guidance on how to do that, I really encourage you, visit our website at prisonprofessors.com. We give away way more information than we sell, and we never ask anybody to do anything that we didn't do. So please subscribe to our channel on YouTube if you haven't done so already. We produce new content every week on YouTube, but also on Facebook and also on our website, because we're really committed to trying to help people get the best possible outcome. My name is Michael Santos, and I never ask anybody to do anything that I didn't do. Our entire team at Prison Professors is committed to helping you. We've got a new motto at our new site called compliancemitigation.com, and that's, we did the time so you won't have to. Make sure that you prepare yourself for the best possible outcome. Again, I am Michael with Prison Professors, and I want to thank you for being a member of our community.